Hello everyone, welcome back. So we're on our second book for our Christmas themed stories for December. Real quick shout out to one of my top authors, Lila Rose. I'd signed up for her Christmas card list figuring it was going to be a postcard. But it wasn't. They actually made cards using the art from some of her books. And then inside she had some swag stickers for the different MCs stories that she does. So that was super fun. And I always love when authors actually go a little above and beyond when they do stuff like that. It just, as a reader, it makes you feel valued, you know? So that said, let's get into today's review, which is what you're actually here for. And today's review is Happily This Christmas by Suzanne Mallory. So, this is the story of Wynn and Gerrick McCabe. Now, there are trigger warnings, but they're not really so much direct trigger warnings, except for one or two things. There's reference to the fact that Gerrick used to do undercover work and had been taken hostage by a drug cartel. Within that story, we do get his, he does talk about the fact that the partner he'd gone undercover with had sacrificed themselves so that he could survive. And it wasn't terribly graphic, but it was, you know, it was definitely an element. So if you're someone who's very sensitive to that, it could trigger you. And then there is a character who is pregnant, and the scene where they go into labor is kind of graphic in terms of like describing the sensation of labor, but it doesn't actually go into the act of labor and all that stuff. It does cut to the aftermath, you know, when the baby's been born and, you know, cleaned and all that stuff. So it's actually really good about not being overly descriptive on things that can be considered disturbing or triggering, but they are there. So if you're super sensitive to those subjects, it could bother you, but it really shouldn't. It's really going to be the same level as like what you would possibly see on a television show, like an action television show. So that said, let's get into the story. So Wynn Buchin is a single mom to a 14-year-old boy, and Gerrick is the town sheriff. He is Wynn's neighbor, and the two of them have had an attraction, but they've never acted on it. And they have more interaction with each other when he asks Wynn to help him to make his home more cozy because his estranged daughter is coming to visit. His daughter is 21 years old. She is married, but her husband is a Marine and he's currently deployed overseas. And she is pregnant with her first child. She was staying with their mom, and she couldn't stay with her mom anymore, and she had to come stay with her dad, and she's got a chip on her shoulder. So in addition to the romance, which obviously is the bigger story, it is a romance. I will say the last story, the romance was equal parts with the rest of the story. This one, the romance is the priority story, but a close second is Gerrick's relationship with his daughter and them working out, him trying to figure out what happened to cause the estrangement, her being a brat, in all honesty. Like, she's the only unlikable character in the story. The 14-year-old boy behaves better than a 21-year-old expectant mom. And it really irritated me until the point when you find out why the estrangement happened. And then you find out there was someone who was very angry and upset with Gerrick, who instigated it by lying to his daughter, who at the time was 15 years old, and didn't know any better than to believe them. And given circumstances, that at the time he was going away for work more often, specifically when he was going undercover, there was not much he could do to make her believe that she was valued. And he didn't know that somebody had gone to her behind his back saying these things to her. And yeah. So, to the actual romance part of the romance book, Wynn and Gerrick, their relationship just develops really well throughout the story. There's neither one of them really fights it. So, Wynn has had a crush on Gerrick. Gerrick has definitely noticed her. And when she decided to help him make his house more cozy, as he said it, for his daughter, they noticed they really had chemistry. They got along really well. They both enjoyed each other's attitudes and perspective on life. He admired the way she raised her son. She admired the fact that he was trying to open up to his estranged daughter. And, like, he was like, you know how people say that Charlie is the only likable character in Twilight because he's like the really positive, loving dad? He's just a little awkward. Think of that, but like times 10. He was the dad who prioritized his daughter always, and that's part of what wins Wynn over. Like, she already liked him. She already wanted to ask him out. She was constantly debating with herself to do it or not. But interacting with him, seeing his devotion to his kid, she really was just in awe of him. And to an extent, she didn't value herself as much as a parent. She thought she is a good parent. She tries very hard, but she was always kind of second guessing herself and thinking she wasn't doing well enough. And Gerrick helped Wynn to see herself better in terms of how well she was doing as a parent. And he really helped to bolster her. So they had a really good chemistry. It was a very natural development. I mean, it happened super quick because, again, Hallmark movie-esque vibe to it. It's going to happen in a few weeks or less. But neither one of them really had any issues with a relationship, with entering a relationship, with developing a relationship. There was one part where one of them said something the wrong way, and because they were trying to keep a bit of an emotional barrier, it did kind of create a problem, but that problem was fixed within like 5 pages. So you don't get a lot of heavy conflict. You don't get a whole lot of like angst. It's not an angsty story. It's a slow burn. It is a slow burn. It's very smoldering for the first third to almost half of the book. But once you get that payoff, whoo, it just goes a little bit more smooth sailing until one of them says something stupid. So it's a good story. Just like with the last story, you do have that really heavy community-based aspect to it. Both Gerrick and Wynn have a good circle of friends and support in their community, and it's a small town called Happily Inc., I believe. Oh man, I should have looked that up. But so you do have that community aspect to it. Like, one of the scenes that was the most Hallmark-ish vibe to it was the town came together to make sure a military couple got the wedding of their dreams before New Year's, because they wanted to be married before New Year's, because it could affect whether or not they would be deployed together or not. And so this town, like, they all chipped in to help pull this off for a couple they've never met, because it was Gerrick's daughter's friends. And someone even donated a portable fireplace, which who knew that was a thing. And I think that was just one of the sweetest things I'd ever seen. I will say there's a little bit of suspension of belief in how awesome Gerrick is, how awesome Wynn is, how awesome the 14-year-old son is, and also how much money these people would realistically make out of their salaries as an independent business owner and a police officer. Like, some of the stuff they did financially did not make sense. But again, it's a holiday story. It's not necessarily meant to be super realistic. It's just meant to give you good vibes and get you into the holiday cheer and spirit. And I definitely think it does that. Normally, this would be where I would rank the book. However, if you watch my October series, you know that I am currently debating whether I want to continue doing rankings or not. So now through until New Year's, I'm not going to rank any of the stories that I review, because I don't really necessarily feel right doing that. There's so much that has to do with like perspective and things, and I really don't dissect like grammar and spelling and all of that because I'm terrible at those things myself. So we're going to try this through until New Year, and then right around New Year's, I'm going to start, asking people for feedback. Be like, do you prefer a ranking system or not? And then whatever the feedback is, we'll go with for a while and see how we do. So I'm not going to rank it, but I would say this is one that I would recommend. I cannot say that I would recommend it for anyone under the age of, say, 17 or 18, because there is cursing in it, which that's not a big deal. There are intimacy scenes in there, like actual full-on steamy time scenes. The last story the first one that I reviewed for December, I said would probably be good for pretty much the whole family, like people past the age of 10, to where they can understand different relationships. This one I would not recommend. I would not feel good recommending for anyone who is not 18 or at least close to 18, simply because, again, steamy vibes in there. So, but yeah, for the most part, I would recommend it. I think it would be a really great addition to your holiday reads. So I look forward to seeing you all at the next review, which will be at some point next week, where we're going to review Christmas at Holiday House by Rianne Thine. Which, by the way, that cover. So, I look forward to seeing you all at the next review. Through December, I am going to be doing updates on Instagram, which will also then get loaded up to Facebook. We'll see if we like it. If not, then maybe we'll just do it for December's. If we do like it, maybe we'll do that once a month or something. We'll see how it goes. See you all at the next review. Bye.